Ballon d'Or list is starting to look hot at the minute. There's some huge players who have had some incredible moments there. Looking at the favourite, Ousmane Dembélé, after that Champions League result, he's put himself right in the running order. One of the most exciting young players in Yamal, Mo Salah, a record-breaking season for Liverpool. Raphinha, he couldn't stop scoring for Barcelona this year. And Kvara, what a season he had to put himself into that Ballon d'Or miss. Adam, what do you make of that list? It feels like a bit of a changing of the guard. Salah's hanging in there as the old guard. Dembélé.
Yeah, well, Liam, the thing with the Ballon d'Or is it's always a bit of recency bias. Obviously, Dembele's just lifted the Champions League. He's been fabulous in 2025. So I think that explains the odds. They tend to move who's having a good time of it right at the moment. And if we'd done this a few weeks ago when Mo Salah was lifting the Premier League title, I think he would have been top of that list as well. But it's hard to argue with the list as it is there. But which way do you go? It's interesting to see who's actually going to lift it then, because there will also be a bit of recency bias by the time we actually come to handing out the award. Who will be the player who's right in form at that time, because that does make a difference.
Right, well, let's get things started with the absolute bagsman for Barcelona this year, Raphinha. What a season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's my favourite. I think Raphinha, as we stand here now, I think he's going to win it. I covered him a lot when he was playing at Leeds. I did think he was a great signing for Barcelona. I thought he could improve a lot. There was the raw talent there when he was playing in England, but I never thought that he would get to quite this level. I mean, unbelievable numbers that he put up this season in terms of goals, assists, and also his big impact on the team, the way that this team played. 57 matches, 34 goals, 22 assists. So that's more goal involvement than more than one per game. Unbelievable. Joint top Champions League scorer with 13. And he has this kind of energy going forward that few other players can match. You can compare him to Yamal. They're very different players, but when he's on full flow, defenders just don't know how to stop him. He's got the pace. He moves so well with the ball at his feet. And I think, for me, if we were handing it out now, he would be the man who got it. It's been an absolutely unbelievable season. And I think in terms of improvement of all of the names we saw there on the odds, he's the guy who's gone from point A to point B and the biggest improvement this season.
I think as a player, looking at his mental strength, you mentioned there the jump from Leeds to Barcelona to be joint top goal scorer in the Champions League, UCL top goal scorer this season. Do you think that he's unlucky to miss out on the player of the UCL, given how many goals he scored?
Well, I mean, he's up there with other players who've had brilliant seasons. I think I mentioned recency bias. Obviously, Dembélé, comparing to him, Dembélé's been really, really good in the last few months, and that's certainly helped him. But I think the thing with Raphinha, we mentioned that the move that he made from England over to La Liga and then the success he's enjoying with Barcelona. We've seen that happen with players in the past, where they go to a huge club and can they deal with the pressure? And he has answered that 10 times over. He certainly can, and who knows because he's still young, who knows what he can do in the next few seasons.
We've seen in clutch moments when Barcelona have relied on him, he's been the one to step up. But on the other side of the pitch, someone we've got to talk about, Lamine Yamal. What a season. His not a breakthrough season, but the way he plays football with such confidence at such a young age is amazing to watch.
Well, we always know that he's going to win the Ballon d'Or at some point. Is it going to be this season? What a season it's been for him. I think the only question mark over him for me was, and you could say this perhaps earlier on in the season, was the contribution in terms of goals. It wasn't scoring quite as many and at the same clip as some of the other players that you would compare him to. Now, is he just measured in goals, whereas someone like Salah and Raphinha would be a bit more focused on that? Only 18 over the course of the season. But I think the thing I love about Lamine Yamal is at such a tender age is the big smile that he's got on his face. He loves playing the game. He enjoys being so difficult for defenders to stop. And when you just see him cut inside on his left foot, and you know that he's going to send it into the far corner and into the back of the net, but defenders don't seem to be able to stop him. They know exactly what he's going to do, but they can't manage to tackle him and get the ball off him. A fabulous season for him. I don't think he's going to win it this year. But he'll definitely be winning it in the next couple of seasons for sure.
If we think about all the generational players from yesteryear, the Messis, the Ronaldos, they all were breaking through at his age, and seeing him do it this year has been so exciting. You mentioned they're cutting in on the left, someone who's done it time and time again for Liverpool this season, Mo Salah. He'd love to get his hands on the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, I mean, Mo Salah, and also to be doing it at 32 years of age. I mean, he doesn't look 32 when he takes his shirt off, tell you that for sure. He's carried this team, and I think also with Mo Salah, and we were talking about the psychology of players, given the fact that there was all of that talk swirling, and it was something that he had to deal with, and obviously Arne Slot as the manager had to deal with, and he dealt with it superbly as well, with the talk of his future, the talk of his contract. Was there going to be a new contract? Was he going to have to go somewhere else? And to be able to put up these kind of numbers, 52 matches, 34 goals and 23 assists, I mean, they're just unbelievable numbers for a player in his 30s. And often, you know, we say it, don't we, early 30s, 32, 33, that's the kind of age where a player starts to be on the descending trend of his career, and Father Time starts to catch up with him. But for Mo Salah, it doesn't look like that. And I think that's the reason why they have offered him a new contract, is because he's a 32-year-old that plays like a 26-year-old, and he was just absolutely brilliant to watch, I'm sure, for you as a Liverpool fan this season.
You know
and he deserves it.
I was fortunate enough to sit down with him a couple of seasons ago, and you know, when you interview someone, I asked him the one thing he still wants to win in football. Before I'd even finished the question, it was the Ballon d'Or. And looking at these numbers here, we're talking about him in all-time Premier League forwards. He's given himself the best chance.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think he's also a leader in this team. I know that's not always necessarily factored in when it comes to the Ballon d'Or, but he leads by example, and we don't always see that in football. And yeah, he lets his feet do the talking.
And someone who's picked up 2 medals for 2 different teams this season.
Well, he won the quadruple, Kvara.
He's put himself right in the chat for the Ballon d'Or this year.
Yeah, he certainly has. I mean, he obviously you could make the case that he won the quadruple because he was at Napoli for much of the early part of the season, and then what he did since signing for PSG. The impact's been unbelievable. He is one of those, a bit like Yamal, they're very natural footballers when he's got the ball at his feet, the speed at which he's able to push forward. He also, a bit like Salah, lets his feet do the talking. You don't get too much from him in interviews. He's not huge on social media. He's just someone who, right, what you see is what you get on the pitch, but what you get is extreme quality. 44 matches, 12 goals and 8 assists, so not the huge numbers that we saw compared to some of the other players. But he was a fabulous signing for PSG. Luis Enrique had been tracking him for a little while. I'm sure Napoli were frustrated to lose him. Antonio Conte certainly was. They were able to win the title without him towards the end. But he is someone who I think this PSG team as a whole has got the opportunity to now go on and create a bit of a dynasty in European football, and he's going to be a key part of it.
Yeah, an incredibly exciting team, and their talisman, the one who's taken up the mantle after Mbappe leaving, finally feels like it's his time to be the main man. Ousmane Dembélé, he's so close to doing something I'm sure he'd love to do and lifting that Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, and I think it's great for those who've charted his career in time at Borussia Dortmund, Barcelona, and now PSG. It is a story of redemption, even in this season, because remember earlier on in the season, the game against Arsenal in the league phase, he was left out for turning up late to training, not having the right attitude. Credit to Luis Enrique with being able to work with him, you know, perhaps shaking him by the shoulders and saying, look, Ousmane, you've got an opportunity here to be one of the best players in the world, but you need to act like it. To then fast forward a few months to starting the calendar year 2025 in the way that he did. I mean, he was the hottest player in front of goal in all of world football. Slowed down a little bit in the last few games. I know he scored against Arsenal in the Champions League, but he's contributing a bit more in terms of assists, you know, coming up to the Champions League final. But it's been an absolutely tremendous season for Ousmane Dembélé, particularly the second half of it. And he, a bit like Kvara and Desiree Doué, Bradley Barcola, he is part of that really exciting attacking quadruple that you've got for PSG. And I think he would certainly be a worthy winner. The big question mark for me is, can he continue that kind of form that we saw in the last few months or so into next season, or will it be, you know, he's peaked here and then he starts to drop off a bit? We'll have to wait and see.
I wouldn't want to be choosing, but you've actually picked out your top 3 Ballon d'Or power rankings for us, haven't you? I don't want to see any recency bias after.
Yes, no, well, and that's why I mentioned it earlier on. I've dropped Ousmane Dembélé down to 3. I think a lot of the reason why he was number 1 in terms of the bookies was just because he just picked up the Champions League trophy. I've gone Raphinha. You cannot argue with the numbers that he's put up, the impact that he had on this team, the fact that he was playing with all of these youngsters around him and was able to perform in the way that he did. yeah, I think just absolutely brilliant. For him, I've got Mo Salah second and then Ousmane Dembélé second. But I think if we're going to hand it out right now, it's got to go to this man. What a season.
I think few people would have put Raphinha up there, given at the start of the season. If you looked at that list, Raphinha, I'd imagine in many people's eyes, wouldn't be near it.
Well, no, I think some of the Barcelona, would you have put that many Barcelona players there? Because there were so many question marks over them coming into the season. You know, the financial difficulties that they were having to deal with. Hansi Flick, how would he get on in charge of the team? The fact that they just were having to rely, because of a lot of the financial difficulties, on so many young players. You never know how youngsters can get on, particularly at the top level. But all of those questions were answered. So, yeah, I think Ian and I did something where we were talking about the Ballon d'Or much earlier on in the season on Scoreline, and we didn't have as many Barcelona players in there simply because we didn't ever think that they were going to be as successful as they were this season.
Now, for me, I think Lamine Yamal's unlucky to not make your list there. I think if I liked looking at the eye test of football, you know, the stats are great, but the most exciting player for me this season has been Lamine Yamal. So he's made it into my third place. But you mentioned there Raphinha. I think to go and make that jump from Leeds to go to a Barcelona team where there is a lot of uncertainty and in clutch moments score vital goals and put in the numbers that he has, I think he deserves to be second. But I've got to stick with Mo Salah for the top spot.
What team do you support again?
No shock there, but I just think we were talking about him all season as levelling all of the greatest goal-scoring records in the Premier League. He's right up there in the top goal scorers of all time in the Premier League. And for me, I think he deserves the Ballon d'Or this year. I think if we'd have had a longer run in the Champions League, I think it would be an easier argument to make for Mo Salah. But in terms of the way he's carried a team under a new manager, transfer talk, I think he deserves it. What do you think?
I agree. I think it'd be a worthy winner. Yeah. And Mo Salah, you know, for what he's done also off the pitch, yeah, for African football, for Egyptian football as well. You know, he's one of those players that so many youngsters look up to. And yeah, he would be a worthy winner.
But as football fans, how lucky are we to get to talk through this list? Football's in a good place.
It certainly is, yeah. I mean, what an exciting season. And, you know, you mentioned earlier it wasn't quite as competitive in terms of the Premier League. And Liverpool, obviously, they profited from the weakness of some of the other teams, particularly Manchester City. But at the end of the day, you've still got to win the trophies. And Mo Salah and Liverpool were able to do that.